Well, my friends, today we're diving into the deep end of precision. And if you've ever heard of a machine hum like a symphony, you already know who we're talking about. It's Lieb here. Now we're in Detroit. Weather's a little bit different.
Weather's a little bit different, but we talked about football then, and we could do that again today, too.
Their brand new Skive Finishing process is shaking up the global gear industry, combining the magic of skiving and grinding into one new era of productivity. I apologize for trying to act like an auctioneer today in order to get through all of these questions.
There's some marketing stuff in there you got to get out. I get it. Totally get it. You know, for a new operator or somebody getting into gears for the first time, or, you know, whether there's consolidation of gear shops and, you know, they have this excess capacity and, you know, how can we make them more flexible so that we can do a big gear, a small gear, all in the same factory, you know?
Yeah.
Today's episode is brought to you by MTDCNC, the go-to platform covering the latest stories in the world of manufacturing.
Well, my friends, today we're diving into the deep end of precision. And if you've ever heard of a machine hum like a symphony, you already know who we're talking about. It's Lieb here. For decades, they've been defining or redefining what gear excellence looks like, from the heart of Kempton to the factory floors of Detroit and beyond. But just when the world thought it had gear finishing figured out, Lieb here did what innovators do best. They rewrote the playbook. Their brand new Skive Finishing process is shaking up the global gear industry, combining the magic of skiving and grinding into one new era of productivity. And that's just one gear and a transmission packed with innovation. From Flex Chamfer to dresser-independent profile technology, they're not just machining gears, they're redefining what precision feels like. And today, I have Scott with me on the podcast. Scott, always good to see your smiling face. Last time I think I saw you was in Florida.
That's right.
Now we're in Detroit. Weather's a little bit different.
Weather's a little bit different, but we talked about football then, and we could do that again today, too.
Football, yeah. Well, there's a good win, I believe, recently with Detroit.
The local people here like
The
that.
local people were happy.
That's for sure.
But we're going to skip football this time because we have a very limited amount of time. And I have a whole lot of freaking questions, Scott. So I hope that's okay with you.
Okay, I'll do my best.
That's all we can ask. Even if our best is not that good, when people look at me, you know, I'm like, dude, I'm doing my best over here. I'm doing over here. You know, that's my New York terrible accent. Your team, you and I have done a lot together as of late. I spent time in Germany. I learned so much. We had over a dozen videos come out working with Thomas and Felix and Peter. It's an amazing factory. And we went over so much that your team sent me specific questions that I need to ask you today, or they're going to be mad at me.
Okay, and I hope I passed the test. I hope.
Normally, these things are very much, let's just talk about what's going on in life. And I know you have a lot, but I don't want your team to be mad at me. I like those guys too much. So I'm actually going to read and ask you questions today. I know it's important for the audience to hear some of the answers for their psychology.
Good developments.
Yeah, and I think it's important we hit these notes today. So I'm going to start with number one, which is the spark behind Skive Finishing. It's the talk of the global industry right now. What was the moment that sparked the idea, and how does it change the way job shops think about hard finishing compared to traditional grinding or skiving?
The spark is really around, I would say, internal gears and how we finish internal gears. You know, for years and years and years, especially in automotive, these were all broached or gear shaped and then carburized or hardened in a way that would deform the teeth. And so we really wanted to go for, a more economic finishing process than the traditional profile grinding or hard skiving, which we do with a carbide tool. So that was really the idea. And I think another spark of the innovation was the use of CBN tools. So we've always done, plated CBN tools, nickel bonded plated CBN tools at our factory in Ettlingen ever since we started in gear grinding in the late 1980s. And so the idea was to use our old system for the CBN and apply it to the Skive process. So we call it Skive Finishing. And you asked about job shops. Well, I mean, you could take the same skiving machine that you have from Liebherr that's, green cutting the part before hardening, and then change the tool system to our new CBN tool and go for the Skive Finishing after heat treat. So a job shop user can use the machine, for green cutting, traditional skiving, as well as the new Skive Finishing process. So it's a pretty flexible application on a Liebherr skiving machine.
Yeah, I'm grateful I got to spend time with your guys over in Germany to learn more and more of that firsthand.
Yep.
And I really wish we had more time today because I'd ask you to dive into that even more. Yeah. I think after each of these questions, because the technology is so revolutionary, we just have to say to everyone watching and listening, if you want to know more, just give you a call, right?
The key is in the tool and how we shape the tool and how we're able to shift the tool to use multiple contact lines throughout the face width of the gear. So yes, there's a lot of details. You can certainly contact me or Andreas Mayer or any of the guys you met in Kempton, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to move on to the next one. Again, with apologies, because we could talk about just that for the entire podcast easily, because the technology is fascinating. So now we're going to dip. Do you remember that song? Dip, baby, dip, baby, dip.
Of course. I think nearly the same age. So yes.
Yeah. You remember you were at the club dance for that one too? I put my hand up on your hip when we did. Okay, I'm not doing that anymore, Scott. I apologize. But this is the dip revolution, which is Liebherr's dresser independent profile modifications let shops achieve crowning and tip relief without a line by line approach. For someone who's been dressing gears the old school way for decades, how big of a time and surface finish leap are we really talking about here?
I think this is really a game changer. The dip, we call it dresser independent profile modifications on a grinding tool, specifically a grinding worm for the generating grinding process. And what you typically had to do, and you kind of touched on it there a little bit, is you had a custom dressing tool to make that module, number of teeth, and any kind of tip relief or profile modifications like profile crowning. It had to be in the dressing tool. So basically one dresser for one part number. And the other approach is completely flexible, but totally slow, and you don't get a good surface roughness, line by line dressing. You basically CNC dress the worm and feed it in a little bit on each pass. So what we've come up with is using a standard flank dressing tool, and you can make all these corrections, a tip relief, a profile crowning. You can do all of that with a standard flank dresser, and it's done with our software and extremely complex mathematics that are inside the grinding machine. So it's makes a job shop, they can take the flank dresser out of the drawer and they can make this very same day with a standard flank dressing tool any kind of special modifications that their customers would need. So yeah, I think it's pretty revolutionary.
It sounds like it saves a ton of time and a ton of money.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you don't have to wait 16 weeks for a dressing tool.
Good.
Which you sometimes needed to do, and so that's really, like I said, standard off the shelf one. You can make these corrections.
Yeah, we thank you for being so evolutionary. Thank you. As a company, thank you. All right,
they did a really good job with that at Liebherr.
We're going to move off the dance floor now and move into the evolution of the chamfer. Okay. The chamfer evolution. From chamfer cut to flex chamfer, you've turned what was once a very tedious process into something elegant and repeatable, even with standard tools like end mills. What's the secret sauce behind the transformation, and where are you seeing it make the biggest impact? Aerospace, EV, heavy industry, something else?
Okay. Yeah, we started with skiving, then we shifted to grinding, and now we talk about more green cutting. So this chamfering that we can do either with hobbing or with shaping or with skiving inside the machine or as a standalone machine. And as you mentioned, we started with the chamfer cut. I think we started that back in 2005. And it's a very good process. It's a very even chamfer, but again, custom tools. So a customer would have to wait a long time to get the chamfer cutters. And yes, one part number is basically all you get with that tool. You can't change over and do other parts. So where we see the big benefit is job shops, even big industrial gears. You take a standard end mill, and the software from the Liebherr machine, it programs the same chamfering spindle that we use for chamfer cut. You can change to the Flex Chamfer, and it goes the full cutting land of the end mill. So it's not like a 5-axis machine where it runs around the top of the part and wears out the ball nose on the end mill. It uses the full cutting flute. So its software is the key, and anywhere where we couldn't fit the chamfer cut tool, we can now fit a standard end mill. Like collision parts, like in aerospace, sometimes you see a shaft with gear teeth close to it. So all of those applications fit the flex chamfering. But once again, kind of like the dip, if you want to use a standard off-the-shelf tool and do this custom chamfering, you don't have to wait 12, 16 weeks to get the cutting tool.
Yeah,
it's really, I think, a game changer for job shops.
I am seeing a pattern on game changer for job shops. We're going to talk about that at the end because I'm finding a summary right now from what you've described.
Yeah,
and
cool.
It's something we talked about in Germany as well, but I'm going to save it because we got one more we got to go over before we start getting creative in this, because again, I want your guys to be happy. And the last one I have for you is the human side of innovation.
Yep.
Right. From your perspective, what's the cultural driver inside Liebherr that allows such consistent breakthroughs? Is it curiosity, collaboration, relentless German insistence, or that good enough is never good enough?
Yeah, that's a good question. I know what's in the culture of Liebherr. I've worked there now 18 years, and it feels like family. You know, when I'm with my Liebherr colleagues in Germany or here in the USA traveling around, you know, we know each other. Of course, we all have our faults and we all try to push the envelope of innovation. But I think that family atmosphere, which we have, we really allow people to take risks. And I think that's been a big success factor since we started making hubbing machines in 1952. We take a risk now and then. And yes, it doesn't always work, but it ultimately leads to innovation and, you know, trusting that the employees who are making these risks, you know, they have the backing of the Liebherr family. So, yeah, sounds corny, but I think it's the truth, actually, you know, about the Liebherr group.
I agree. 100%. I haven't worked as long as you have with them, but I've spent a lot of time, and it felt like family almost instantly, honestly. I want to step back to the summary I was coming up with, Scott, based on every technology you described. And it brings you back to a conversation I was having with Peter over in Germany.
Yep.
And historically, we, or especially in the gear world, as you're in, have made millions of parts. You could put a machine in. Some machines were dedicated just to a part, and you just run that over and over and over and over again. We've realized as of late that the overall lot sizes have gone down. Even if we're not even talking about straight job shops that have a high volume all the time, even the production shops are seeing a reduction in the capacity of how many are going into one order. And what I've noticed when I was in Germany and when the questions I've asked you today with the technology, you guys have been really focused on being able to switch out quicker, shorter lead times, run parts, whatever it needs to be done to support these lower lot sizes. Does that feel familiar to you?
Yeah, it does. It's a good observation. I would say maybe that's built in the history of us making gear cutting machines, because when it started, we're making it for our own production. Of course, Liebherr makes, you know, bulldozers and construction equipment, and so we didn't have these long lot sizes in our own factories. We had to be able to change over fast to be efficient. And I think, yeah, you see that trend in automotive even, you know, where we had one machine to run one part number all the time. You know, they're also changing over model mixes. And so I think it's been there since the beginning, but there's certainly been an emphasis on the tooling and making the custom world of gear manufacturing easier, you know, for a new operator or somebody getting into gears for the first time, or, you know, whether there's consolidation of gear shops and, you know, they have this excess capacity and, you know, how can we make them more flexible so that we can do a big gear, a small gear, all in the same factory, you know?
Yeah. Well said. I wish we had more time, Scott. I do. I always want to have more time with you. I apologize for trying to act like an auctioneer today in order to get through all of these questions.
There's some marketing stuff in there you got to get out. I get it. Totally. So,
and we were short on time, unfortunately, but if you want to come back to the show, we'd love to have you anytime.
Well, thanks, Tony. I appreciate
whether it's in Florida or wherever you want to be, it's fine with me.
Sweet.
So with that being said, my friends, thank you. I know this has been a short one. When you listen to people like Scott Yoders, I mean, you start to realize that innovation isn't just about machines. It's about mindset. Liebherr keeps asking, what if? What if? And the world keeps getting smoother gears, faster cycles, and better finishes because of it. From the chamfer cut to the Flex Chamfer, from dip, baby, dip to Skive Finishing, every new development tells the story, the same story. Precision doesn't happen by accident. It's engineered, tested, and refined by people who care. That's why Liebherr doesn't just build machines. They build confidence and motion. Scott, thank you again. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for listening. If you want to find out more about what's happening in the world of manufacturing and engineering, visit mtdcnc.com.